Hey guys, what's up? My name's Alyssa, and today I'm going to be talking about types of appraisals. There are three main types of appraisals, so I'm going to take you through each one. We'll touch on a little bit of vocabulary, the 4 different levels of real estate appraisals, and appraisal reports. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, and I'll do my best to keep it coming. So first, for some vocabulary, an appraisal. An appraisal is an individual's opinion or estimate of a property's value on a specific date. So you're not estimating the value of a property in the future, but for income properties in particular, you may be evaluating the present worth of future benefits. So what is it worth right now based on the potential return? Market value. Market value is the price a property would bring if freely offered on the open market with a willing seller and a willing buyer. So the value is based on a buyer and a seller signing the purchase agreement of their own free will. Now, this could be affected if it was an arm's length transaction, which means maybe the buyer is the daughter and the seller is the mother. So that would obviously affect the value, or if someone was forced into a transaction in some way. And of course, the 4 elements of value will also come into play here, and those are demand, utility, scarcity, and transferability. So I remember those with the acronym DUST, and I go into explaining that acronym in a little more detail in my acronym video. So if you want to check that out, I will link it below. Market price is the actual sales price of the property. So you won't know the market price until the property is actually sold, but you can use the market prices of other properties that have been sold to help you determine the market value. And last is depreciation. This is any loss in the value of a property from any cause. So this would be for reasons like economic obsolescence, which are causes from outside of the property, like if there was an airport built nearby, or functional obsolescence, which is outdated design. So that could be like a small kitchen or no bathtubs in the house, or physical deterioration, which is just normal wear and tear. So let's go through the 3 methods of appraisal. The first is the market data approach, also known as the sales comparison approach, because lots of terms in real estate have multiple names for the same thing. But you can remember that market data, you're using the market data, so the market prices that have for houses that have already been sold, and you're comparing them to help you find a value for the house that you're listing. So this would be used for single family residences and condos and vacant lots. So I think it's pretty easy to remember that you would use the sales comparison approach for just single family homes and condos, but vacant lots is kind of a strange one. But as we go through the other 2, you'll see why those don't make sense for a vacant lot, so you can kind of narrow it down. The next approach is the cost approach. This would be used for special use properties like libraries, museums, or police stations, and unique structures like the White House, for instance, or for new buildings. And last is the income approach, or it's also called the capitalization approach. This would be used for investment properties, retail spaces, or office buildings. So any kind of property that's going to bring in some kind of income. So I think that one's pretty easy to remember. Income approach, you'll use that for properties that bring you income. So now we'll go through each one in a little bit more detail. So the market data and sales comparison approach, again, as we just noted, these are used to estimate the value of single family residences, condos, and vacant lots. So all you have to go on for a vacant lot is just the land itself. So you wouldn't be able to use the cost approach for that because there's nothing to calculate and it's not an income property. So that basically only leaves the market data or sales comparison approach. And this approach uses the principle of substitution because when people are shopping for a home, they'll compare it to other homes to see that they're getting the best value. So if there's two comparable properties and one is cheaper, typically somebody's gonna go with the cheaper one. Just like when you buy anything else, you'll always compare what you get with the price that it's offered for and try to find the best value. So we're using comparable properties or comps. And again, the comps are properties that have already been sold, so you know their market price. This is the most commonly used approach and typically the only one that's used by real estate licensees. And it may be difficult to use this approach if the market is erratic or if there aren't enough recently sold comparable properties. So if values are bouncing up and down or there hasn't been a comparable property sold in maybe over a year, it can be difficult to use this approach to determine an accurate value. So the cost approach, this is used to estimate the value of special properties, unique properties, and new buildings. This estimates the cost to replace the improvement with another of equal use. So note the word replace there. This is different than a reproduction cost. So replace is just to replace it with something of equal use. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. Whereas reproduction is actually creating a duplicate. So this approach tends to set the upper limit of value because since you're estimating cost, you're going to tend to overestimate that. So in the end, the value that you're setting here will probably be a little bit higher. And to estimate a new building, the following types of methods can also be used. So that'd be the square foot or cubic foot method, and this is the most common type. The quantity survey method, which is the most time consuming but accurate, or the unit in place method, which is the most detailed. And last is the income capitalization approach. So as we discussed, this is used to estimate the value of property that produces income. So an investment property, if you're purchasing a property to rent it out, it's producing income. A retail space, that's any kind of shopping plaza or an office building. Those offices are used for companies that are producing income. So this estimates the present worth of future benefits. The value of the property will equal the net operating income divided by the capitalization rate. And the higher the cap rate, the higher the risk. So if someone wanted to open a hardware store, a kind of mom and pop, no-name hardware store, the capitalization rate would be higher than if you are opening a well-known franchise. So now we'll go through the 4 levels of real estate appraisers. The first is the trainee. A trainee must work under the supervision of a licensed appraiser. A residential appraiser can appraise 1 to 4 unit residential properties up to $1 million. So a residential appraiser, like most things when we talk about residential, we're talking about 1 to 4 unit properties, and the magic number here is $1 million. Next level up is a certified residential. So a certified residential appraiser can appraise any type of residential, and additionally, they can appraise non-residential up to $250,000. And the last level is the certified general. So this is the granddaddy of all appraisers. A certified general appraiser can appraise all types of properties, commercial or non-commercial, regardless of the value or type. So I remember certified general with a G is G for granddaddy. That's the highest level you can go. So last, we'll just go through the 3 types of appraisal reports. The first is the self-contained. All conclusions and data are fully disclosed and discussed in this type of report, and it's the longest and most thorough report. So think of self-contained as being all-inclusive. It contains everything that you need to know. Next is the summary. So that's just a summary of findings with a short explanation. So you can remember summary as shorter than the self-contained report. And last is the restricted report. So that's the shortest format. It just states the conclusions with no explanations. So restricted, you're getting restricted conclusions with no explanations. So a few facts you need to know about appraisals. The first step in appraisal is to state the purpose or the problem. Appraisals can be done for lots of different reasons, and that will affect the value that the appraiser comes up with. So you always want to state the purpose, like is the appraisal for a lender or some other reason. Next, the appraisal never averages the findings of the different approaches. So they're never, in some cases you may use a comparable approach and an income approach, but they're never going to take those two values that they come up with and average them together. They'll reconcile them. So they'll weight them based on which they think is more important to come up with a final estimate. And last, the appraisals are based on the date they are provided and estimate the present worth of a property. So we discussed that one a little bit already, but it's definitely worth repeating that the estimates are the present worth of the property on the date that they're provided. If that was helpful, I'd love if you could leave a comment and let me know what you learned, or if you still have questions, definitely drop them below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.